Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shark in the gun, got the knowledge for the college. Football show breaks down the odds of scholars. 3-unit bangers, stacking cheddar like towers. Ride the wave to fame, flex in the midnight hours. 9 words of lifestyle, spitting flames, no pity. Dominate the board like kings, ruling the city. Sports, gamble, and hustle. Money moves so gritty, cashing tickets every Friday. Life looking pretty, ride the wave. Feel the rush, hit the dame. Shark in the gun, setting fire to the name. 3-unit bangers, stacking chips, no shame. Friday night sports kings, claiming that fame. Analyze stats, break bread, no sweat. 3-point spreads, risk life, major bet. Cash in pockets, feel.
On a suddenly not so casual Friday evening in October, it is CFB Knowledge for College Week 8. The Shark and the Gun, October 18th, 2024, right here live on Sharky Waters Nation and the GunzPicks channel. Come on over to the chat on X and YouTube. We are simulcasting. We want to talk to you guys. We hope you had a great week. It's Friday night. It's an opportunity to dominate. GunzPicks, what's going on, brother?
Man, if you've been following this show the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been giving you free money. We've been absolutely cashing tickets left and right, not only in the NFL, but also college football. Just dominate the board. We got plenty of picks for you guys to feast on here, and it is going to be a beautiful, and I mean beautiful, college football Saturday coming up, and make sure you dial in. Get into the chat. Let us know what you're on. Let us know what you're doing tonight. You're drinking, you're smoking, you're eating. Well, I want to know everything that is going on today. Shark, let's get into the board, baby.
One play on Friday. The Gun loves it. A degenerate special, as he calls it. Not degenerative from an analytical perspective, but the late night sweat will be available tonight in Provo, Utah. BYU at home in the first half, -6.5.
I mean, come on, guys. It's Friday. We're going to be staying up a little bit later than usual, knocking back some cocktails, maybe smoking a little, maybe having an edible. But this is going to be a beautiful game. Might as well have some money on it. We have Oklahoma State going on the road to face BYU in LaVell Edwards Stadium, Provo, Utah. At night, dangerous spot here, 10:15 p.m. East is the kick. Oh, where you got with these two teams? You have Oklahoma State off a bye week and have lost 3 straight conference games. On the other side, we have an undefeated BYU team that is off to a 3-0 start in conference play. I like this play for a few reasons. This is a revenge spot here for BYU. They lost Oklahoma State 42-34 as 16.5-point road dogs, and now you see them favored here heavily as -9, -9.5, -8.5. I'm seeing 8.5s on the board right now. And then I want to take this from a first half perspective. We're going to dial in and look at these two teams in a first half perspective. It's very weighted to the first half here. It's set at -6.5, which is, pretty much 3/4 of the line on this one. It tells you everything you need to know. BYU is going to come out strong here. BYU has outscored their opponents 103-49 in the first half with an average lead of 9 points per game in the first half. And then Oklahoma State has been outscored 89-75 in the first half, trailing by an average of 2.3 points per game overall. Then we take it from a conference perspective. BYU versus conference opponents this year, having outscored their opponents 62-27 in the first half with an average lead of 11.7 points per game. And then we have Oklahoma State versus conference opponents. They have been outscored 62-23 in the first half, trailing by an average of 13 points per game versus conference opponents. So you have the revenge factor here for BYU. They want their pound of flesh. I think they're going to get it early here in Provo, where it is always tough to play. We saw Kansas State struggle there. At night, you're going to see Oklahoma State struggle. They got problems here, and I'm going to be back in the BYU Cougars here. Give them to me, -6.5, first half as the play.
My first play tomorrow, it will be. Saturdays are for sending it. October 19th, 2024, high noon special in Louisville, taking Miami, Florida in the first half at -2.5. And when I started to look at this game, I found a great buy low on Miami, and it's slightly more detailed than looking at their 6-0 straight up record. You really have to go to pre-buy, where this team was noticeably cratering down at the back end pre-bye, going 0-3 ATS in the first half in their previous 3 ball games. And if you really go through those games, I think they were very situational. At USF, out of conference, not a motivated spot at all. Came home against Vatech, a very explosive Vatech team, barely beat them 38-34. And then the culmination of this 0-3 sample, a game played in Berkeley, California on October 5th. Not a historical rival for Miami at all, and a 10:30 kick time on their East Coast body time. Miami came out abysmally, down 25 points very quickly, giving up 3 long TD passes in the first half before somehow coming back to win that game. But here we are now, off the bye, lackluster pre-bye. Now they get a refresher, and they get to come back to where they did play great in the first half in week 1 at the University of Florida. And what does it have to do with Louisville? This is a motivated road spot, a conference revenge game. And I think they will come out here blazing hot. And as we always talk about with these splits, go to FanDuel. It's the sharpest book for the splits. -3.5 on a -4.5. That's 77.8% of the game line in the first half. And you go to Louisville here, it just checks all the boxes. Louisville is 0-3 ATS first half at home against FBS teams, only cover in week 1 against Austin, PA. We don't think Austin, PA has much to do with Miami, Florida. This will be early and often a high-scoring first half at high noon in Louisville. Take Miami in the first half, -2.5. Staying at high noon, going north to Connecticut, Storrs, Connecticut in October, a beautiful fall day. I'm sure it will be up there. The Gun going back to an old reliable, and it's surprising to say that at this point. I never thought we'd be talking about UConn football as old reliable, but they are a juggernaut home team up there, and finding them favored against ACC Wake. Take note of that line strength. The Gun certainly has an official UConn -120.
Yeah, I mean, UConn's favorite at home again. We love these spots, and you're going against a pretty bad Wake Forest team. They're coming off a loss to Clemson last week, 49-14, -333 net yards in that game. This is a bad team here, folks. Going against a UConn team that's 4-2 on the year, coming off a bye week, well-rested, well-prepared. They're plus 14 point differential, plus 111 net yard average. This is not your father's UConn team here, folks, as far as football is concerned. Wake Forest is just terrible on the defensive side. This is why I like this UConn spot. They give up 478 yards of total offense to opponents, 4.9 yards per carry on the ground, 71.2% pass completion rate to opponents, and 300 passing yards per game. If you want to know their rankings as far as the rest of college football, they're ranked 121st in defensive scoring, 128th in opposing yards per game, 115th in opposing third down conversion percentage, and 102nd in opposing red zone scoring. This is a defense that is basically UTEP in the Conference USA. This is not P4 level defense here, folks. You have UConn has an offense, too. They can beat you multiple ways. They can kill you in the ground game. They average 5.1 yards per carry on the ground. Passing the ball with Joey Fagano. I think he came from UMaine. I got to double check that one. 10.2 yards per attempt, passing rate 11-3, touchdown to interception ratio, and they protect the quarterback well. This offensive line is actually pretty good, only giving up 2.2% sack rate on the year. That is just a weird situational spot here for Wake Forest. They're playing their ACC schedule, getting their momentum in, and all of a sudden they just throw this game into the sandwich before they play the rest of their conference schedule. Weird spot, in my opinion. And then UConn has just been going to be motivated. They're coming out their bye, and they get a P4 opponent at home, of all places. It's just a great situational spot for them. They are going to be super motivated to beat this Wake Forest team. Also, look at UConn, 6-2 straight up as a home favorite in their last 8 games. And then you got Wake Forest, 1-5 straight up as an away dog, 1-6 ATS versus non-conference opponents. This is just a good motivational spot here for UConn. And while I'm just going to kick the spread, I'm going to throw that right out the window because we got a great money line here at -120. Just pick UConn to win the game. UConn money line -120 is the play.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a situational buy low, having not covered against Temple in their previous game. And something we've detailed on UConn going back, it feels like 3 seasons now, and I think it is. You really want to buy them at these small home favorite points, not when they're inflated at 19.5, 20.5 for some of these bottom feeder teams in FBS and some of their FCS calendar points. So the gun on UConn minus 120, I certainly wouldn't disagree with that play. Staying at noon, going to Clemson, South Carolina, ACC special here, taking the over between UVA and Clemson, 57.5 for 1 unit. And when I started to go through this, it really doesn't get much better in terms of home versus road polarization in totals for both teams. Clemson is 0-3 versus the road or neutral over. Went under against Georgia emphatically in the opener, 34-3. Couple funky unders at Florida State and Wake Forest. Tons of yards, not a lot of points. Nonetheless, 0-3 to the road over. Come home, 2-1 to the home over. This is where you want to buy points at Memorial Stadium. And these have been absolutely egregiously high totals. 66-20 against App State, over by 30 points there. Against NC State in conference week 4, 59-35, over 44.5. And they did go under against Stanford on September 28th, but really a situational outlier there. 54 points on a 57.5. 3+ territory interceptions in the game and downs. Probably should be 3-0 to the home over. And this is really just scheme. This kid Klubnik did not look particularly good last year. He has come into his own. They are explosive, to say the least. And you go to the UVA side of this game, the transparency here is excellent as well. UVA is 3-0 versus the home under. Really low totals, 34-13 week 1. And I think a situational buy low here. The last 2 weeks, 24-14 home game against BC and 24-20 last week against Louisville. Those are NFL-style totals. Go to their road environments, 31-30 at Wake, almost 1,000 yards in the game, 43-24 at Coastal Carolina, 909 yards in the game. For whatever reason, when UVA plays home games, it's like Leatherhead 1942 football. And when they go on the road, it is officially 2024 run and gun track meet football. This is going to be wide open at noon. Take the over, 57.5 for 1 unit. Keeping it moving here, 3:30 p.m. 2 sides in this game. Big game in the Big Ten. Michigan at Illinois in Champaign. Also Memorial Stadium, maybe not coincidentally. And GunzPicks looking at the over 44.5.
Yeah, you look at these two teams splits as far as offense and defense is concerned. I think it complements the offenses on both sides of the ball. I'll get to that in a second. But you have an Illinois team that should be able to pass the ball versus a Michigan pass defense. I think the public perception is Michigan has a good defense. Rush defense, not pass defense. Michigan's defense is ranked 133rd in opponent pass play percentage, meaning a lot of teams decide to throw the running playbook out the window and just air it out versus this Michigan team. Because they're 77th in opposing pass completion rate, 102nd in the country in opposing pass yards per game, and they're 50th in QB sack rate. This is not a good pass defense for Michigan. And then you got to look at Michigan's offense. They love to run the ball. They're basically a triple option team without the triple option as far as their play calling is concerned. 5.1 yards per carry on average. And they're going against an Illinois rush defense that's really not that great. They gave up 239 rushing yards in back-to-back weeks, and that was Purdue. Purdue is a bad team, and they ran up on them. And then Penn State. They got gashed in the run against Miami, Ohio, and Kansas, too. So rush defense is not their strong suit. Pass defense is. And then you got to look at the offense for Illinois, too. They can pass the ball very well. Luke Altmaier's having a great year, passing over 200 plus yards passing per game. So they're going to be fine in the passing game and really take off and move the ball down the field. And Michigan's going to move it with the run as well. The total's sitting here at 44.5. And when you look at that compared to the totals that they've seen all year, this is the second lowest total that Illinois has seen all year. The other 2 lower totals that they've had have gone over. So that's 2-0 right there. And then you got to look at Michigan. This is the second highest total that Michigan has seen all year, and the highest in conference play. They're 3-0 to the over versus conference opponents this year, and they're 4-0 to the over versus P4 opponents. So their 2 unders were against the G5 teams. I just think this is a very good thing for the Michigan offense because they want to run the ball. They're going against a weak rush defense. And then on the other side, Illinois wants to pass the ball. And guess what Michigan stinks at? Pass defense. So what does that mean? Score, 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 score. It's going to be an over here, folks. And we get a nice total here at 44.5. I love it. Give me the over. 44.5 as the play.
Absolutely. A lot of top guys in the chat here. Old Man Who Bet says it's going down. It certainly is. And Justin agrees with that Clemson over. Staying in this game, Guns said the over. I would have to agree. The last time these teams played 2 years ago, the only time Brett Bielema faced Michigan in his career with Illinois here, 19-17. Jim Harbaugh and the boys, 36 points. It's going to be a totally different style of game. And I'm taking Illinois plus 3.5 for 1 unit. And when I started to go through Illinois, I really like what I'm seeing here. Team is 5-1 ATS. They're 3-1 ATS at home. And their only non-cover was last week. And I'm sure Guns remembers this because he did have the first half correctly last week. They came out and smoked Purdue early and covered the first half. And I think this is not so much that they're bad or they couldn't beat Purdue. They thought they had the game in hand, and they were looking ahead to this game against Michigan. This is a 6X revenge game against Michigan. Illinois hasn't beaten this team in a long time. And this seems to be a trend on this show, both NFL and college football. A lot of 6X revenge games recently. And these teams do show up, particularly when the books are telling you this short number. And speaking of Illinois at home, they are 3-0 ATS versus ranked opponents. That's not exclusively at home, excuse me, but versus ranked opponents. Back when Kansas was still ranked before they precipitously fell off the grid, Kansas was actually ranked number 19 in the country. And Illinois did beat them 23-17 at home. Illinois did beat ranked Nebraska outright on the road as an underdog. And they did cover against Penn State on the road, also as an underdog. And Michigan here, very briefly, just not a great spot yet again on the road. For whatever reason, Michigan started this campaign with 5 consecutive home games. Talk about a cake schedule. They finally went on the road 2 weeks ago, pre-bye. We had Washington, and Washington did handle them 27-17. Now they stay on the road, crazy short number. And I think this is really where Illinois could win this game by some margin. I had Illinois to win this game by 11 points. And the last time they played that game 2 years ago, Michigan was minus 17 at home. So you talk about line functionality here, minus 17. All of a sudden, we open up at minus 1.5. Heavy Illinois stuff here. We love Illinois plus 3.5. We expect an outright win. And the gun over 44.5. Guns picks, 4 o'clock, small market football, Mountain West football. Another money line home team we like to buy these spots. New Mexico minus 120 versus Utah State.
Yeah, before I get into the play, I just want to make sure we have a play coming up here, and this guy asked a question about Oregon covers today. I took a quick look at the first half on this one just to see how the line was weighted. This is a 30.5 line right now. It is moving towards the Oregon direction. You see the first half at 17.5, kind of a strong indicator. We may be seeing Oregon come out strong and maybe sit back and pump the brakes in the back. Purdue, you got to understand where they're coming from. They're coming from a position where they went to overtime, fought, and they lost the game. They may come into the second game, maybe turn up in the second half like we saw with Illinois. I know that Oregon has a reasonably big game next week versus Illinois, so there might be a look ahead there. Purdue's just a bad team, not a team I would personally back myself. If I would take a play on this one, I'd probably lean towards the Oregon first half, minus 17.5 as the play, but it's not official for me. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Shark?
I mean, I wouldn't disagree. You saw Purdue's best effort last week. And as we mentioned when we were just discussing Illinois, I'm not entirely sure if that's a showcase to Purdue's quality as much as it was Illinois letting down, looking ahead to Michigan. So I think Purdue is an absolute gas can this year. You've seen them get demolished by certain teams. Guns obviously knows very well. Notre Dame hammered them by what, 50 almost or something?
It's 66-7. That was the final.
Yeah. So you see what Purdue has put on record, what they're capable of doing. They're capable of getting absolutely blown out. And Oregon, honestly, has not really taken their foot off the gas this year once they got going in week 3 with that game against Oregon State in Corvallis. It's a great team. Dylan Gabriel, obviously, fifth-year senior at this point, transferred 3 times. Heisman hopeful, maybe. This is an Oregon spot. I personally don't love laying huge numbers. I think there's always a backdoor element. But, again, when you see Purdue get their ass kicked at that level by 60 points, they are really a bottom feeder. So Oregon or nothing. And, of course, Old Man Bet says the over. I think that correlates to it. Margin win, a lot of points, no defense. I actually kind of prefer the over to the game side here, Guns. What do you think about that?
It's tough because you came off the big win. You came off a huge win in prime time, beating Ohio State. Is the motivation there to go? Granted, you're playing on the road to go play Purdue. It's probably not the most motivational spot on the planet. I like just abusing taking the first half with Purdue because a lot of these teams just go and boat race them in the beginning. They get outscored heavily in the first half, especially against these ranked teams. The safest bet to me, knowing that the line is weighted probably, I think 60%, 58% of the line is weighted to the first half. I just get in this weird situation that as bad as Purdue is, I mean, the line last week versus Illinois was like 24 and a half. And this one's 30. It opened at 28. You can see some weird backdoor action because Oregon doesn't care. They want to move on to the next week. They got 2 good back-to-back teams in Illinois and Michigan coming up. I think this is a weird mega Big Mac sandwich spot, and I don't want anything to do with this game, but I kind of like the first half, so that's all I'm going to do with that one. But we're here to talk about West football and talk about a key play on this one: New Mexico versus Utah State, Maverick Stadium, Logan, Utah. Spot 4 p.m. is the kick on Saturday. And listen, we have a Utah State team that's only won 1 game this year. Guess who it was against? FCS opponent Robert Morris. They throw that outcome out the window. And we look at their point differential this year, minus 26 point differential, minus 91 net yard average on the year. This is a bad Utah State team. And then you got to look at New Mexico this year. Strong offensive play, putting up 457 yards per game, 6 yards per carry on the ground, 248 passing yards per game. They also have a great offensive line that is only given up, get this, 1 sack all year. They got to be the best offensive line in terms of sack percentage this year. Granted, their schedule's a little bit weaker than others. I get that, but this is still a good New Mexico team. And then you got to look at Utah State. They've given up a lot in the past, 5.8 yards in the passing game, allowing 5.8 yards per attempt this season and 233 yards per game. And then, I'm sorry, that is the rush. And then we got to look at the Utah State. Owns the history in this one. You talk about 2X, 3X. This is 7X revenge here for New Mexico. Straight 7-0 straight up, 6-1 ATS versus New Mexico. And the one non-cover was last year. Utah State won the game 44-41 as 5-point road favorites. And now the line is completely flipped to the New Mexico side as a favorite. I'm sorry, 5-point home favorites. And then you've seen the line flip to the other side. And New Mexico's on the road here, folks. So that is a good line correlation. You have a favorite that was a dog at home last year, and now they're favorite at home. Then you have New Mexico. Favorite on the road. And then you have New Mexico, 2-0 ATS as a single-digit favorite this season. And then Utah State is 0-5 straight up versus FBS opponents this year. New Mexico should get Utah State here. Why? Because they haven't beaten an FBS team all year. There's a huge revenge angle here for New Mexico. And a unique line swing from going from a home dog to now a road favorite in 1 year. The momentum here is with New Mexico coming off 2 straight Mountain West wins back-to-back after a little bit of a slow start. New Mexico's heating up. Utah State is a bottom feeder. Give me New Mexico money line, minus 120 as the play.
Yeah, great stuff there with that line. My next play, 4 o'clock, Lubbock, Texas, taking the Texas Tech Red Raiders at home in the first half, minus 3.5. And as we say, every time we talk about these first half plays, go to FanDuel, see what they think. They like this one too. This is 3.5 on a 5.5. That is 64%. It is heavy, and it is for good reason. Bayron Morton third or fourth year as a starter, a lot of moving parts, injured, in and out of the lineup for 3 years now. This guy, when he plays at home, comes out with fire every single game, and you actually find a nice little buy low. Texas Tech is only 2-2 in the first half at home this year, so they should actually improve from a statistical aspect. And those non-covers were very situational. They didn't cover in the opener against an FCS team, Abilene Christian. Let that be what it is, an unfocused point. And they didn't cover against Cincinnati a couple weeks ago at home in the first half. Key point there, Cincinnati is 5-0 in the first half against the spread, last 5 in their FBS schedule. So that wasn't Texas Tech not being great. Cincinnati's just particularly great in that spot too. And you go to the other side of this game, finding Baylor in a back-to-back road sequence, actually 2-0 road ATS first half last 2-1 on the season. I think a great sell point here for Baylor early. Because if you go back to those previous 2 covers, they covered at Colorado in week 4. We're up at the half 24-17. If you look at Colorado is actually 0-3 first half ATS at home. So that wasn't Baylor being great. That's Colorado not coming out well in their home stadium, which is something to take note of as we go forward. Fade the Buffaloes at home early. And last week, as I mentioned, at Iowa State, lost the first half 19-14. Iowa State threw a pick on the Baylor 5-yard line to close the half, and they were going to score because Baylor does not play a lot of defense. And final point on this game, it was Baron Morton last year, October the 7th, 2023, at Baylor. Texas Tech first half, 17-3. This is where Tech comes out well. Baylor's way too hot in this spot, catching poor home environments. This is a great home environment for Texas Tech. Buy this early at -3.5, and let's dominate. Only collaboration play of the broadcast here, 28 minutes in. We hope you guys are having a great night on this beautiful Friday. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, SEC football in Fayetteville, Arkansas. The gun has the hat on. I'll throw it to him first. Arkansas +3.
You know I'm going to be on the Hogs Pig Suey here on SEC Ball, Razorback Stadium, Fayetteville, Arkansas. 7 p.m. is the kick, and you have an LSU team coming off a big win versus Ole Miss, a team that you basically just take the home team blindly and don't even cap the game when LSU had missed play. But a big overtime win, losing the yardage battle, -43 net yards in the game. They're 5-1 on the year, but they're going against an Arkansas team that is going to be ready to go. They came off their win at home versus Tennessee, had a bye week, and they're going to be well prepared. They have a plus 14-point differential and a plus 163 net yard average this year. Very good Arkansas team. I've been telling you this Arkansas team is going to impress people and take their over on wins. And then LSU, what do they want to do? They want to pass the ball. They are ranked 9th in the country in pass play percentage, 5th in passing yards per game, 3rd in QB sack percentage, great offensive line, but they are susceptible to turnovers. They are ranked 78th in interceptions thrown percentage. So the quarterback there does throw picks. A little bit misleading on the stats, though. If you actually look at the defenses that LSU has faced, they've faced some pretty bad defenses. If you go look back, their best defense that they faced all year is South Carolina, and South Carolina held them to under 300 yards passing in that game. And if it wasn't for South Carolina pooping in their pants in the fourth quarter, they would have got that win. But they did, and LSU moved on and got the win. Arkansas is going to be a better defense. They're 45th in the country in opposing pass completion rate, and they're 27th in getting turnovers. So this is a team that will ball hawk here versus LSU. And Arkansas in their last 2 games, if you actually looked at how they've done versus the passing game versus those opponents in A&M and Tennessee, they held them both to under 160 yards of passing in those games. And then you got to look at LSU. I know they own the history versus Arkansas. 7-1 straight up since 2016 versus Arkansas, but Arkansas 5-3 ATS in those positions. And then you got to look at Arkansas 5-1 ATS on the year, 3-1 straight up, 4-0 ATS as a dog. This is not your father's Arkansas Razorbacks here, folks. And then you have LSU 2-4 ATS on the year, 0-2 ATS is a single-digit favorite, 0-2 ATS away from Death Valley, and LSU is 2-6 ATS as an away favorite under the abysmal head coach Brian Kelly. I think this situation works perfect for Arkansas. This could be a potential letdown spot too, because guess what? They have a big game next week, and I'm talking about LSU. They got Texas A&M with playoff implications on the line. They may be overlooking this Arkansas team like Tennessee did. Let's do it. Give me Arkansas. They're going to win this game outright, but I'll take the +3 all day long. Arkansas +3 is the play.
Yeah, Gun's giving great information. I'll jump off it with some emphasis. And I think really the great point you made there, look ahead to A&M. Also, coming off of a ranked home win, a revenge game against Ole Miss last week. So you have a huge revenge game against Ole Miss, overtime win, fans storming the field, and then you got to go on the road to play Arkansas, a team, as Guns mentioned, you've dominated, and then A&M. This is your classic trap sandwich spot. And you catch, as Gunn said, a great Arkansas team here who is 4-0 ATS this year versus Power 5 schools. Almost beat Oklahoma State outright in Stillwater, lost in overtime, and covers at Auburn versus Texas A&M, and a huge win against Tennessee last week. This team is upstart. They're well coached. They are a bye team, and LSU is 0-2 ATS this year on the road or neutral. Lost in the opener in Vegas against USC, and a non-cover in week 3 early at South Carolina, 36-33 at -6.5. And the line here is short. Last 2 years, these teams played tight games. 13-10 Arkansas 2 years ago. 13-10 LSU 2 years ago. 34-31 last year. Key point there, Jaden Daniels. I'm wearing the hat. This guy's balling in the NFL. He's not on LSU anymore, I'll tell you that. Significant quarterback downgrade this year. And the line downgrade is immense as well. Last year at home, LSU was laying 18.5 points. 18.5 points. And now they're opening at -2.5 on the road. Incredibly strong stuff. This should be an Arkansas outright win, and margin could develop here. Buy this one, a collab play, the Shark and the Gun. Arkansas at +3, 2.5 now in markets. If you want to buy the line to get our line, feel free. It's not that expensive. If you want to ride 2.5, we do expect an outright win. Buy it, live it, love it, and let's dominate. My final play, going back to the SEC, going to Gainesville, 7:45 here, p.m., taking the Wildcats of Kentucky on the road on the money line, -111, close to -130 now for good reason. You find a great spot to buy Kentucky. Took a loss last week at home against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is incredibly upstart this year. We've seen that for a few weeks in a row. Not a bad loss, but a loss nonetheless, and a home non-cover. The only other time this year Kentucky did not cover a home game, you got to go back to week 2. Got blown out by South Carolina at home, 31-6. They came back the next week and almost beat Georgia outright, 13-12, as a 21.5 point favorite. So this is your classic zigzag team. They can lose to anybody by margin. And truth be told, I think they can beat anybody in the country potentially when you see what they did against Georgia in week 3. And you truly find a great spot to fade Florida. Florida has underperformed in Gainesville all year. They're 0-2 against big-time opponents in the Swamp this year, getting blown out in the opener at home against Miami, Florida, and blown out a couple weeks later at home against Texas A&M. And you really start to go through the matchup data itself. Kentucky with Mark Stoops, who is one of the longest head coaching tenure guys in this conference right now, signing with Kentucky back in 2013. Recently, he has dominated Billy Napier schematically. And if you really go through the last 2 years, as Napier's only coached this matchup twice, go back to 2022. It was Will Levis on the road at Anthony Richardson. Kentucky won that game 26-16. In my eyes, Anthony Richardson, Florida at home, should beat Kentucky with some emphasis. 10-point loss, egregious. And last year, it got worse. Kentucky 33-14. Now Kentucky favored on the road in the Swamp for the first time probably in 20 to 30 years. incredibly strong stuff. And Florida lost their quarterback last week, Graham Mertz, to an ACL tear. This is a true freshman quarterback, DJ Lagway. Don't let his numbers fool you. If you look at his stats on the year, he looks representative. 65.3% passing, 765 yards. 436 of those yards came in one game against FCS Stanford. Lagway in duty against top FBS competition, Miami, Florida, A&M, and Tennessee. 18 for 36 passing. That's only 50%. Only 183 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. This is classic rookie in the NFL, true freshman in college, facing a top-level defense, angry off a loss, and Florida off a road win where they do not perform well. Kentucky should win this game with some emphasis. Buy them on the money line, minus 111. That's a show for tonight. 37 minutes in the books. CFB Knowledge for College, Week 8, the Shark and the Gun. My top plays, Miami, Florida in the first half at noon in Louisville, minus 2.5. UVA Clemson over 57.5. Illinois plus 3.5. Texas Tech in the first half, minus 3.5. Arkansas plus 3. Kentucky minus 111. GunzPicks late night special tonight. Fridays are for freedom in Provo. Turn them up in the first half, minus 6.5. UConn minus 120. Michigan, Illinois over 44.5. New Mexico on the money line. And a collab special. The buy hat is engaged. Arkansas plus 3. We hope you guys have a great Friday night. Get some workouts, beautiful people, some drinks, some food, whatever you're doing. Sending you guys amazing vibes. We will be back here Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. for the NFL show, The Extra Points. We love to bring you guys the top hype, conversation, analysis, and picks. GunzPicks, a pleasure as always. Close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, I got to call out the guys in the chat. We had Jay Soto, Stilo Krim, of course, Stacks always joining, throwing plays out like money. I'll see you tomorrow on Pub Sports, baby. And then we have Bob the Candyman Can. He's always in the chat. Of course, Peter Grazia, True Gun Sight, Full Sox Nation, LVCC picks from Dave, and the rest of the crew. You guys are the best. Thanks for joining the chat, and make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at GunzPicks on X, and then at Sharks in Sports 88 on X as well. And then just follow our channels, hit the like button on this video at the Shark and Waters Nation channel and the GunzPicks channel if you haven't done so already. But we will be back on Sunday for the extra points. And guess what? We've been dominating, and I mean dominating, NFL. And so join us for that. That is going to be at 10:30 a.m. We'll give you the time as we get closer to it. That's going to do it here for the Knowledge for College show. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. Let's go Flying Mormons today on the first half. And let's keep dancing. Yeah.